Hello all and welcome to another ZoidRush video. There's a lot going on in the League of Legends scene right now, but one thing that I wanted to talk about is pretty much Dota 2 versus League of Legends. It seems to be a big discussion, especially within the last week, and I just wanted to kind of cover this, the pros and cons of the whole discussion. I feel like this is a good discussion to have, and also it's a bad discussion to have, and we'll kind of get into that. But where did it all start? When did it all start? How has this all come up to play? I mean, we've always had a competition between Dota 2 and League of Legends. You have your Dota 2 fans, or your Dota fans in general, and then you also have your League of Legends fans who are just diehard fans one way or another, and whatever game you choose, right? We're not going to be talking about that. Well, Dota 2 or Valve released a big old update, and I mean a huge update. They're updating a whole bunch of things. If it become to the interface within Dota itself, things that make it easier for players to navigate or work the system easier. And when I say work the system, I mean work the game easier. And just anything that the community really asked for, try to kind of work into the patch notes or this patch, Dota 2 kind of delivered. Dota 2 delivered pretty big, and I mean really big. So Dota 2 added a bunch of things, new features, old features, updated things, like I said. And then this is when it all started. League of Legends post, or there was a post on the League forums, and it pretty much stated as such. It said, hey, League of Legends needs to do what Dota 2 is doing. And you're like, what the heck's going on here? So you click the link and it's all of a sudden it's just like, hey, Dota 2 updated all its things and it gave everything that the players wanted. Now you go to the Dota 2 forum or the Reddit subreddit and it's just players just praising and thanking Valve for giving everything they wanted. I mean, they're like, oh my god, thank you for this, thank you, you listened to us, you listened to your fans, you did so much for us. Can't believe it. Thank you so much. Everything we asked for is in this patch or going to be coming into the next patch because it's a huge update. I mean, they updated so much stuff. So it comes onto the League of Legends and then you're like, boom, right off the bat, you're like, oh my god. Here it is, Dota 2. Why can't we be like Dota 2? Why is it that when we ask for things, Riot doesn't give it to us? And I don't think that's the case at all. And of course, more and more posts pop up, and Reddit falls into this kind of same, circular pattern. They're like, let's not be, and this sounds just like deja vu. They're like, let's not get us confused. We're not trying to be. It's not Dota 2 versus League of Legends. And then, inside, it kind of reminds me of the same post of, don't be confused. It's not mods versus no mods, when it was mod free week on League of Legends subreddit. So let's start with the pros. I think the pros are a little bit more than the cons. Maybe they'll pan out. But so the pros right off the bat are simple. You got League of Legends and having competition. This is very important. We've had competition before, but I think this is the first time that really people have really noticed and picked up on patch notes or what Dota 2 is really doing. I'm not saying we don't respect one another game. I mean, we always respect Dota, and I always respected Dota, of course. And Dota players always respect the League of Legends community in a whole, and when I say in a whole, they respect the game and they respect the content creators, maybe not the community itself, but the content creators and what they do and the passion for their game. And this is good. It's good to have competition because this always keeps League of Legends on its toes, and I think this is something that League doesn't really had to face really in the last couple of years, because League of Legends was just grown out of mass proportions, as we've talked about many, many times. And with League's mass proportion growth, I mean, there's nobody really competing with them. Yes, there's other games like them. Yes, there's other systems and other things that, games that could potentially compete with them, but ultimately League of Legends kind of took number one and just kind of steamrolled from there. And like I said, there's no really competition and no real, fighting force. Another pro of this is that we kind of look at how Riot itself is going to respond to this, and I think it's really important how we focus on how Riot's going to, focus on this, because I don't think it's that they don't listen to us. I think they do listen to us. I think they listen to us more than anybody really can argue. I mean, there's been discussion, and I've made videos about this, how Riot himself or themselves are a reactive company. They react, they're not proactive, they're reactive. If a community is like, oh, this is a bug, this is really annoying, and it reaches the front page of Reddit, or it reaches the top thing on forums, boom, it's fixed, next patch. And I think, like I said, part of the problem with Riot itself is a lot of things that we talk about, a lot of bug fixes, and a lot of little things that were issues in the match, if it be glitches and this, that, and the other thing. You have, the set forth of, hey, we fixed it, we just didn't tell you. And I talked about this in a previous video about how, ways of Riot could actually talk to you about this, communicate it within the patch notes, make a post about it, be like, we noticed what's wrong, or there's bugs like this, here's what we're going to fix, this is what we want to fix, this is what we fixed this patch, but we didn't add it in the patch notes, and these are things we are looking into, but not fixing at this time, but in the future, right? And then it will kill the determination of what's getting fixed, what's not fixed. And I know, yeah, the last part will cause rage and ruckus, and you're like, why would you tell people what you can't fix right now? People are going to be angry because people are going to have that opinion. And yes, you're always going to have that. You're going to have people who are going to be like, well, I think this is more important. I think that this should be fixed before that. And yeah, we're always going to have that, and there's nothing I can do about that. Nobody can do anything about that. It doesn't matter what company you are. If there's something that you seriously believe that's a problem, and it's not the first thing on the list, then yeah, you're going to voice your opinion. You're going to say this, that, or the other thing. But back to the pros. So another pro that I think that League of Legends and Dota 2 have in common is that League of Legends can probably take something from Dota now. And what I say from that is that we've all built from the base, and we've built our own individual games. And I'm not saying steal stuff from Dota 2, but I'm saying what did Dota 2 that was like so spectacular, so like, wow, this really won over a lot of people, or really impressed a lot of people, and it really works well, and it's really just glides and jides with the game one way or another. And I think this is good. I mean, like I said, they've always had competition one way or another, but I think they can take this, look at the patch notes, and I'm not saying steal, once again, make it your own, create it to be your own, and kind of focus and keeping that League of Legends separate from Dota 2, because that's what it is. League of Legends is League of Legends, and Dota 2 is Dota 2. Yes, you could say there's similarities in the champions and this, that, and other, but that's not the point of this video. So, those are the pros. Now the cons, like I said, this is something I talked about a little bit before, but Riot's always been a reactive company, and I feel like it just seems like people kind of forget this. People are like, well, they're not a reactive company, they're not listening to us. They listen to us all the time, and I think it's just ridiculous that people believe that they don't listen or they're not listening to us, which they are. And some of the things and some of the posts that I mentioned were a lot of trivial things that have been on Riot's servers or Riot's agenda for a long, long time, if it be this. And it's not that they're working towards it. It seems like some of these take time and process. One of the top things that comes right off the top of my head is the East Coast server. Somebody brought this up and I was like, yes, League of Legends said they're going to work on it. Yes, the community wanted it, but it's just not a tiptoe kind of thing. It's not like, all right, it's done. No more. It's fixed. You don't have to worry. It takes time, it takes money, it takes a process, and one way or another, how they depend on how they want to do their plan. You just can't just be like, hey, we're building a server and that's it, or hey, we're moving this location. Yes, it's going to take time, and you have to also keep in mind, how do you redirect people, and how do you control the ping problems and the constant problems that are on right now. And that really comes to staff. And this is something I've talked about in the past too. League of Legends has such a limited staff, I believe. I feel like they have grown so much that they were not prepared for, and their staff is not anywhere close to compared what their game popularity is and what they can take on and how much they can take on at a time. I mean, we can look at this for champion selection. When you pick Aoshen as an example, I mean, we've heard about Aoshen for how long for a champion, and Riot was like, well, we released it too early. And it is. I mean, companies do this all the time. They make mistakes. They mention things all the time that sometimes they speak too soon, or they say that that's going to happen. And one of the first things that I can come to mind is World of Warcraft. Blizzard's done this many times. They said they were going to add something in World of Warcraft, or they said they were going to do this, that, or the other thing in World of Warcraft, and 4 years later, somebody posts about it and says, what happened to this? And it just never happens. It kind of disappears. It didn't work out. And yeah, some content creators, what if it be Riot Games or if it be Blizzard, kind of ignores it, kind of shoves it under the rug like it never happened. Yeah, it's a shitty way to do it, but you have to take your pros and cons. What are you going to do if you do mention it? You say, hey, this is not going to work. And for example, I guess we could use a replay system as the biggest example. Yes, the replay system's on the PvE. Yes, it's been there for a long time. Why isn't it implemented into the real live servers? It's because it would be tremendously impossible, I think, to have everybody to store their own data on league servers and have replays. And how many replays are you going to save? If you have 10 replays from everybody, and you have, let's just say, 500,000 people playing, and they all have 10 replays saved, that's a lot. That's a lot of memory. That's a lot of space. And it's just, I don't think a real feasible thing to do. Yes, it's on the PvE and they messed with it and tweaked with it and played with it a bit, but it's not the top priority anymore. And as your company grows and changes, you have to focus on what the top priorities are and what the not top priorities are. So another thing the post mentions that they should work on is the HUD, and they mentioned a bunch of other things that were there that they said they're going to work on and are in the works. And I think when you're talking about the HUD, I think that was a real thing that you can't really bring up right off the bat. When I say a real thing you can't bring up off the bat, is because they just announced it. It wasn't like something like they announced 3 years ago. They said, hey, we're working on the HUD. That was like a month ago, if that. It doesn't need to be instant. I feel like people think that as soon as something's announced, something that is made public, it's going to be out within the next week. And I don't think that's the case, especially in Riot's case. That is never the case. And if you've played Riot as long as I have, and I've been around since Season 2, this is just notorious. Riot is just notorious for saying, hey, we're going to do this. 6 months down the line, it doesn't happen. And yes, I know it sucks, but the HUD thing is brand new, and I don't think that was something that should really brought to the discussion. That really needed to be like, hey, Riot should do this. They should listen to us. They are working at this, and it's not like it's gone away. I mean, they introduced this, they talked about it, they're reworking it, revamping it to make it the best they can. And yes, there are some things that are ridiculously late, ridiculously overdue, which a lot of people could say the client itself could be redone. And I feel like once again we kind of fell into this trap, this whole like if we're given a little bit, a little taste, that's enough for us. You know, we don't ever want to go for the whole thing. We don't want to be greedy sometimes, and sometimes you have to be greedy to get what you want, right? What do I mean by this? Well, everybody was freaking out about the client when the client changes, updates to the changes happened. And yes, there was some criticism, but mostly it was an overwhelming response of, oh my god, this is great. Riot, you have done over and done yourself with this client. This looks amazing. I like this button. It's easy to use. It's sleek. It's sexy. It's blah, 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 blah. And that was the hype. That was the hype. And we didn't go for the whole thing. We got a little taste of it. We got a rework, a visual rework at that. Nothing really ultimately changed with the client. I mean, you still had all the same errors and issues that you had, but they gave you a little taste, and everybody was like, oh my god, that's all I need. That's all I need. And that's what's wrong sometimes with the community, is they think either it's going to be instantly put out, or they get a little taste of it, and they're ultimately happy with it, and then they just forget about all the other problems that are with that, you know, that baseline. Like I said, we take the client. The client itself never really changed. You still got the play again button. It's still similar. I mean, they changed it up visually. Yeah, you can different things. The free week champions are there, and this you click that, whatever, right? And then you get the friends list, and they added some things to the friends list. But ultimately, the client is exactly the same. Click the play again button. You have to edit all your sound options and your mature filter outside of the game. In the game, you can only do so much, and you're like, what the heck's going on? What's going on? And then the match history. Same thing with the match history. So Riot said they were going to add things to the match history, and it kind of disappears again. See? They're like, hey, you don't have to go to a third-party website. You can click on your match history, and you can click it just like that. Let me let you in on a little secret. It's not working. Yeah, that's right. For some odd reason, when I click it, I don't know why, but every time I click my match history, it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't load up. I don't know if it's just because of patch day or something. I'm clicking it. It's not working. And even when it does work, it doesn't give you all the information you want. People have said, why isn't this information on here? Why haven't we still gotten this information? Why do we still have to go to third-party website for this information? And, you know, like I said, we're given a little bit. We're given a little bit of food, a little bit of taste, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. But ultimately, let's go back to the main discussion here. Dota 2 versus League of Legends. This is not bad. There's competition now. I feel like it puts Riot on their heels of, hey, what's going on? What can we fix? I do think on the other side though, people are being over dramatic. I feel like they do listen to us more than any other company. If I say, hey, do this, or this is broken, or hey, this is a bug, or why isn't this fixed, or this would be a great idea, I think Riot does its best to implement it. Are Riot good on timelines? No. But at the same time, I think people, once again, if something is released or announced, they think it's going to be within the next week. Like, yes, I know Riot is bad on timelines, and it should be quickly within the release of this information. If it be the HUD update, or if it be the East Coast servers, yada yada yada. Some things do take time, like the East Coast servers. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for the East Coast servers. And you're probably like, oh, you're not an East Coast. You don't live on the East Coast, so you don't understand. And I'm like, I live in the middle of nowhere land. I live in the middle of the states, guys. Like, maybe a little bit to the right, close to the east, but ultimately dead center in the middle of the states. And yes, yes, it's frustrating. You've talked about this many times, and that's what I think the community needs to keep doing. I think it needs to keep talking about it. It needs to keep addressing these issues. And I don't think that the popular opinion should be like, oh no, they're working on it, downvote, or oh, this is a popular opinion. Not a popular opinion. I don't want to hear about it, right? Or I'm sick and tired of hearing about it. Well, if you're sick and tired of hearing about it, then it's never going to get fixed. That's the ultimate goal. But I do think Riot does listen to us. I do think Riot is working towards these goals and wants to work with these goals. And I'm not using, as I mentioned earlier, the companies being small and having a small employee ratio compared to the amount of people ratio. But it's true, and you can look at whatever the case may be, if it be the behavioral analysts that look at the players' behavior and how many people are on that team, the people that are design the champions, the people that focus on working the champions onto the server. It's all a process, and I think that's a big thing that people don't understand either, is that, when you come up with an idea, and we can use Quinn as an example, it was just probably one of the not the worst champions, but one of the roughest champions that Riot has tried to work into the system. It seems that she was very clunky, she was not smooth, and because you had this visual idea, and yeah, you can draw it on paper, it looks great, everybody has this idea, they're drawing, and then when you put it in live and you put it in action, yeah, it's gonna be that way, people are gonna be like, okay, well, it flip, alright, or her movement's kind of weird, and they did their best to rework it, but it's not gonna be great. But I go off track again. Ultimately, the competition between Dota 2 and League of Legends is not really a competition. I mean, yeah, we have friendly respect and mutual respect for one another. And when it comes to updates, I think, yes, Dota 2 did a great job. It did listen to its community. Everybody's grateful. For the people that actually do play, it's awesome. And I'm happy for you. For people at Riot, this just keeps them on the toes, hopefully. It keeps them on competition. And I feel like this is something that Riot's needed. I think every company needs some kind of competition, because if you don't have any competition, or you feel like you're really ahead of the game, then ultimately you can kind of decide what you want to do. And when it comes to not listening to the community, like I said, it is not true. I feel like they listen to us immensely. I feel like Riot is still a reactive company, more reactive than proactive. When I talk about that, I say, what if it be the front page Reddit, or if it be on the forums, I do feel like they do listen a lot. And ultimately, I do feel like the things that were mentioned will be fixed. It does take time. I think one of the things are we're impatient, and when we are given things, we're kind of given little nibbles of it. And when people kind of start brewing away from what they don't want to hear anymore, especially the East Coast servers, I can give a good example, is that you stop hearing about it, you're not going to get anything done about it. So when you're given a little thing, then you should try and get the whole piece, a whole piece of cheese, you know? You got the little thing, they're like, oh, we're going to do this with the East Coast servers, and then everybody was kind of okay with that. Some people mentioned some things, and you got a little bit more cheese, and you're like, okay, this is looking better and better. And now 3, 4 months, 6 months down the line, you're talking about it again. I mean, just stay on their toes, guys. Go for the whole cheese. Be a little greedy, but at the same time, be reasonable. Anyways, we'll see you next time with another ZoidRush video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you click that subscribe button at the end of the outro. And if you disagree or agree, leave a comment down below of what you want to see Riot do to improve. And, share it, Facebook it, retweet it, all that jazz. And I will see you next time. Bye, guys.